Welcome back to Data Driven Recruiting. My name is Sophia Beck, and I'm joined by my co-host Tigran Sloyan.
Hey, Sophia. So today we're talking about quantifying knowledge, technical knowledge and technical skills, and being able to actually put a number on it and create a standard so that others can understand it too. Because it's one thing to be able to quantify it, it's another thing to actually get the rest of the world to understand it.
Yeah, and have a common terminology to talk about that, right?
Exactly, right? Because it's definitely missing. The only common terminology right now we have to talk about skill is pedigree. It's like, if you tell me you went to a good university and I worked at a good company, that kind of is the only common terminology we have to use as a proxy for ability. And we need something that's a lot more fair, that's a lot more objective, and that's a lot more forward-looking, something that actually can take us to the next stage of recruiting.
Yeah. So tell me about, I hear the coding score, that Code Signal uses. What is coding score?
Yeah, so coding score is the best way to understand it is to think of an analogy with credit score, and sort of even the naming is kind of similar, credit score, coding score. If you go back about 60 years, people today accept something like a credit score as something that must have existed forever, but it didn't really exist 60 years ago. And 60 years ago, if you wanted to get a loan, you would actually have to go to an interview with someone who worked at a bank who basically made the decision on you getting a loan or not based on that interview. Nothing else really, right? So if they were having a bad day, or if you didn't look like them, you didn't talk like them, or
the unconscious bias.
all of the biases, right? All of the biases around like, you don't look like you have money, or you don't look like somebody who can pay off a loan. You're just in a situation where your financial future could be in jeopardy just because that person didn't feel like you're someone who could repay a loan. And this was a bad situation for both people who were trying to get a loan as well as the lenders, because it was really not a effective way to make these types of decisions. And today, if you look at the recruiting industry, it's kind of similar, right?
Yeah.
Hiring for talent is one of the most critical components for every organization. Yet it's kind of random guesswork, whereas you bring somebody in, depending on what everybody's opinion of them is, you sort of make a hire, no hire decision. And credit score came along to solve exactly that problem, where several financial organizations were like, could we actually create something that's more quantifiable, right? Could we pull together a lot of data and say, based on someone's history of what they've done, here is an objective measure of what we think their probability is of repaying a loan.
Right.
And that became the so-called FICO credit score. And FICO credit score, it took time to get to become a standard, right? It took many, many years before, some of the forward-looking organizations started using it and started seeing the return from it. And then gradually, other organizations started following along because it was a competitive advantage. So everybody was like, wait. We have
Right.
to
This
adopt
was the
too.
secret weapon to
Exactly.
really understand and manage the risk as a bank
Exactly.
to say, this is the risk we want to take, or this is the risk we don't want to take,
Right.
and improve their performance, really.
And it gradually became shared language, because then once everybody knows what a credit score is, once they know the range, once they know what good means, what bad means, it becomes a standard around which people can rally and understand and use to bring more data, more transparency into that space. Same idea here, right? So, and actually better, because with a coding score, what we have done is we actually measure ability directly. So if you think about it, the credit score is still based on history, right? Which could be fully accurate or inaccurate.
Or
right?
if you don't have history,
Exactly.
it's really hard to do continuous ones. But
Right.
so tell us, what do you mean by measuring it directly?
Yeah, what measuring it directly means is simulating the job and then measuring your ability to perform it. So essentially, if we're looking at hiring a new grad software engineer, we're trying to see if we gave them an environment in which they're supposed to write code, can they write code? Can they, code their way through some, challenges? And that gives us the ability to understand Are they competent in the language of their choice? Can they do problem solving? So some of the core skills that are important for that specific job. And coding score, unlike the credit score, there's no one coding score, right? There's multiple coding scores depending on what type of skill, what type of job that you're trying to qualify this person for. And I guess a better analogy to that one would be something like SATs, where there's like one SAT score in terms of it's the same scale, but you measure it around different verticals.
So like you have a SAT score for your verbal and math.
Right, like a general SAT that's kind of applies to everybody. And then you've got subject skills.
So like what's your SAT score in your,
like math or
Spanish
physics or Spanish or history. Yeah, it goes on and on and on. Like similarly for software engineering, because software engineering is not one for all, right? There is a lot of variety. There is commonality as well. There's what I call a common denominator. So that kind of becomes the shared score, right?
Like
which we call the general coding
understanding
assessment
of
coding
computer
score.
science,
And then there is subject tests, which we call specialized coding assessments, that go into a JavaScript specialized coding assessment, Java specialized, data science coding assessments, machine learning coding assessments, and each one produces its own coding score. And then they're all on the same scale, so it's really easy to understand. And they're actually on the scale of the credit score, because why reinvent a whole new system so that people have to like relearn it? No, it goes from 300 to 850, and even the ranges are mapped out to it. So when you see somebody with a coding score of 825, doesn't matter if they went to a community college or didn't go to college at all, or if they went to MIT, you know that they're qualified for this job instead of trying to guess it.
Yeah, great. So tell us, like, how do I use coding score in the, let's say, in the recruiting scenario?
Yeah, so I mean, it essentially becomes a replacement for a resume review, because most companies at the top of the funnel try to use resume as a way to determine who moves forward, who does not. A coding score, similar to a credit score, right? It's not like a hiring decision. You don't just make a hiring decision based on that. Just like nobody gives you a loan just because you have a high credit score. But it starts the conversation, right? So like it's a conversation starter. It's the right to play. Having a high credit score. Similarly, having a high coding score becomes the right to play, and it replaces the subjective measures. Like a practical way to do it. Let's say you're doing a lot of early talent, new grad recruiting. You get thousands and thousands of applicants. Some companies get 20 to 30,000 applicants within 6 to 8 months. Instead of just looking at like, okay, let's take the MITs and Stanfords and Harvards, you say, hey,
you're one group
exactly,
and the rest on the other group.
Right. You just say everybody, if you've taken your general coding assessment, we want to see the score. Once you see the score, you have a certain threshold. Different companies have different thresholds depending on the complexity of the job that they are expecting these candidates to do. Right. And then whoever clears the threshold moves to the other future stages of the interview process. Whoever doesn't tries next year.
Sounds good. So it simplifies almost the whole screening process at a very large scale. Like you can simply say, hey, give me your coding score, and you kind of set your own threshold of, for this particular role at our organization, we're going to talk to everybody who is above this threshold.
Sure. And it also gives clarity to the candidates, because as a candidate now I know what's expected of me. And I can even take an assessment like this beforehand. Just like, before your actual SATs, you probably take a practice one, or like you take maybe a real one to see how you're doing. It starts creating more transparency around, am I ready for this job? What do I need to do to improve? It gives more feedback to candidates, unlike other types of sort of assessments or interviews where you walk away not knowing what the hell just happened. Like, why did I get this job? Why did I not get this job?
Yeah, it also gives kind of where you want to be and where you are, so that creates a roadmap for your improvement if that's needed.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for your insights today. For more tips and insights on data-driven recruiting, please visit ddr.codesignal.com.